Human energy, what's so great, and I think a lot of people here have really appreciated this, is that we come from such a wide range backgrounds and everything, but through Ben's insistence on focusing on the noosphere, we have that commonality. So it's not some vague discussion. It's like all of us are trying our best to figure out what this is and how it relates to our lives and what difference it will make. And it's really been a rush to be part of it. At least that's been my experience. And it would be so great if we just gave a little bit of a sense of appreciation to Sheila, Ben, and Terry. Terry, put us on. I mean, endless work. I'm somewhat of an insomniac, and I would write these little detailed comments to Sheila, and they'd come right back. She was always right there on the ready. That's a lot of work to have put this on. So, but one way to talk about this is Terry's way of describing human energy. It's a whole spectrum of orientations, moving from the scientific all the way over to the more speculative or visionary, and our presentation here is definitely, even though it's based in science for the most part, it's speculation, and it's speculation about what Bob Wright said. I'm about cosmic spirituality. So here's some reflections on cosmic spirituality, and in particular, we're wondering about what form will a human experience take as we move into this next era. That's the question in our minds. What form? And that probably isn't necessary to say this, but for God's sakes, no, we're not claiming we know for sure. These are just speculations, maybe to ignite some of your own thoughts about this. Our work at Human Energy involves, part of it is dissemination of our own best efforts at understanding the noosphere and the universe and life and all of that. And but the larger purpose here relates to the way in which humans go through two births. So we were born like other primates, but then as soon as that process is over, right away, we're introduced into the process of being born into a culture. And picking up on Terry's identification of the noosphere with symbolic language, symbolic consciousness. So we're born into the mammalian world, and then immediately we're entering a new process of being born into the noosphere. So at Human Energy, we're attempting to be part of the transformation of culture. So that culture, whatever culture we're in, brings forth a human being of a certain kind. There's a distinctness to the humans coming from different cultures. And so in a big sense, we think of ourselves as being part of a process that is giving birth to new kinds of humans. That's the basic idea. And so many things could be said about this. The focus we're taking here is about the way in which we connect with reality. Over the history of humanity, there have been a number of different ways of taking hold of reality. And so, what are they? But more importantly, what is the form that we imagine is coming about now? So I'm going to tell the third story, and I do this with a little hesitation because we had the fantastic presentation from Francis Heiligen presenting the third story. We had Ben led off the whole conference by giving us a brief telling the third story. Jennifer Morgan told a fantastic Montessorian view of the third story. Here I am again telling the third story. It's like, you can't leave until you learn this, you know. But the way I like to think about it is, as much as possible, we want to be able to tell the story, of what the universe has gone through, what life has gone through, what humanity has gone through, and as much as possible, allowing the listeners to interpret the story in their own unique way. So there isn't, the interpretation is, in a certain sense, everything. So I'm focusing on what we've learned empirically, and then suggesting that these discoveries that we've made, we meaning in the 20th and early 21st century, these discoveries that we've made that bring us beyond the second story, these discoveries need to be narrated so that, and I especially think of younger people, and we talked about the dilemma of the technosocial dilemma. So allowing the younger people to be touched by the universe, by life, by the history of humanity, and ignite not only a zest for life, but also an understanding of why we're here. But what is it that we're about? So I chose three discoveries that we've made, and of course, much could be said about these. But what I'm proposing is that each of these discoveries enables us to feel at home in the universe in a different way. Each of these hopes to ignite a sense of resonance with the larger communities in which we find ourselves. And I chose a name for each to associate with each of them because even though science is complex and involves many, many millions of people, in a shorthand way of remembering what I'm talking about. First is Albert Einstein. So following the work of Albert Einstein, we discovered something that was never known before, that the universe is expanding. The entire universe is expanding. And we find ourselves in the midst of this. But what's stunned all astrophysicists and cosmologists was the nature of the expansion. Now, you have to realize how recent this is. 100 years ago, we didn't know if there was another galaxy in the universe other than the Milky Way. We didn't know if there's one other galaxy. Now we've counted 2 trillion. That's a pretty big change. And then, but the most astonishing part about it is that the expansion rate is exactly what it has to be in order for the beauty of structure and life and mind to emerge. Now, there are in quotation marks, explanations of this. The most prominent one is called the multiverse. So the multiverse theory is this. Wow, it's amazing that we live in a universe that expands just right. That's kind of weird. Okay, let's imagine there's an infinite number of other universes, none of which we've detected, but in all of those, the expansion rates are different. Well, if you have that many universes in one of them, you're going to have the right expansion rate. Now, even though this is the favored position of contemporary cosmologists, I want you to feel how strange that is. How strange that is. It's strange because the minds that are thinking about the universe, they've already made up their mind They've prejudged the situation. There's no possible way there can be anything like a fundamental intelligence at work from the beginning. There's no way there could be anything like a self-organizing dynamic that is mysteriously at work from the beginning, that we don't understand the details. But rather than think about that, a universe filled with this form of creative intelligence, we would rather imagine an infinite number of universes that we have no evidence for whatsoever. Now, the reason I'm dwelling on this is not because I want to beat up on these other cosmologists. It's because I'm trying to indicate that another form of consciousness is necessary to really understand the majesty, the magnificence in which we find ourselves. And that's what we're wondering about. What is that form of getting in touch with reality? What's that form of experience that we suspect is coming in? Now, I don't have the authority to make a statement about the intelligence of the universe that would have respect among the scientific community. But so I want to bring to your mind, as I leave this topic, the name of Freeman Dyson. Freeman Dyson, deceased recently, one of the finest mathematical cosmologists in history. And he was examining, he's one of Einstein's colleagues back in Princeton. He was examining the situation that I've just described to you. And this was his way here's his interpretation. Quote, the more I study the details of the architecture of the early universe, the more I become convinced that it must have known in some sense that we were coming. That's a pretty different way of understanding the empirical data. So my second great discovery was also mentioned by Kevin Kelly in his talk, the idea that Earth itself is self-organizing, and I love the fact that there's a commonality to the third story now. So we didn't get together beforehand and say, "Hey, what are you going to bring up?" No, these are the big discoveries, and the impact they're having upon us is so great that it's like a pattern now is appearing into what the third story is about. So before James Lovelock is the name associated with this, Lynn Margulis, there are others as well, but just to pick a name. What is so amazing is that for life to exist, the temperature on a planet has to be within a narrow band for the molecules to work. If you go either direction, things are going to fall apart. So we've on planet Earth, that little narrow band of biologically fertile area has been maintained for 4.55 billion years. How? Well, for years it was this. It was just like, we lucked out. Nice. It's an accident. We lucked out. But then we discovered nuclear fusion. And then we learned that over the last, 4 billion years, the temperature of the sun has increased by 25%. So now you have this problem. What is keeping the Earth in a state enabling life to exist? I mean, where is it? Where is it? Find it. There's no one place where this control is emanating from. It is rather the system as a whole maintains itself. This changes our view. Before we would think of just the Earth as and just sort of a common sense way of looking at the Earth in general is it's kind of like a gravel pit, it's just there, and it's filled with natural resources we could use. But to enter into the third story and to take in the self-organizing dynamics, then when you're looking at the ocean isn't just sitting there like a passive, lump of water. The ocean is part of the intelligence that's maintaining life on Earth. So you see, there's a way in which we can relate to the ocean that's different within a self-organizing universe, self-organizing dynamics. We can see the ocean as part of our own journey, and it has the ability to interact with the atmosphere and the geosphere and to maintain a vibrant Earth. So, in one sense, I'm saying that this discovery of the expanding universe is a way of entering into a different relationship with the universe as a whole. Before we had the discovery of the expanding universe and the elegance of the expansion, we could regard the entire universe as just out there, and having very little or no relationship to our existential condition. But now there's a way in which, when we look at the universe, we see it's being somehow organized by an intelligence that enables us to exist. I'm not talking about a God. I don't know how to talk about it. It's something we're just discovering, arguing about it. But to now be able to go out and to look up at the night sky and see the stars and realize the stars created all the elements that make up our body. That's a different kind of experience than looking up and saying all of that is just a vast, endless, accidental place. So, the third great discovery that leads to the third story is the discovery that humanity is a superorganism. This, of course, is attributed to Teilhard. And so to suddenly see that the entire history of humanity has been a process of building up the noosphere. And this gives us a way of relating to our own past, our own ancestors, and to see all of that as meaningful, as going somewhere, and that we have the amazing opportunity to participate in it. And here then would be the last discovery that I'm saying is part of the third story, and that is that we live in a time of vast transformation. The universe is always transforming, but it has peak moments. We're living in one of those amazing moments of transformation. The major transformations of the universe are easy to describe. The primordial plasma of the beginning, right, transformed itself into galaxies, stars, and planets. The one planet we know about at least, Earth, began as molten rock and transformed itself into first simple life, and then which complexifies into advanced life. And now we are part of this next one, this third great transformation of a living planet to a thinking planet. This is Teilhard's a name for the transformation. We are building a thinking planet. We have been for 200, 300,000 years, but now we're conscious of it. The noosphere has been operating, Terry, is it 200 or 300,000 years? Wait. Okay. For 1.8 million years, as all of us know, the noosphere has been at work. It's been doing things, but it's not been conscious. It is now. So another way to talk about the work here at Human Energy is that we are part of the process that is transforming the noosphere from an unconscious state to a conscious state. That's our work. And, if a human is unconscious, terrible things can happen, right? Wake up and you find all this destruction that you've carried out. That's because you weren't awake, right? So now we're in that moment when we are awakening. And this too, I think, will reach down deep into the heart and soul of humans, especially young humans, and to give them a sense of what part they are playing in this great drama. So really just getting close to my conclusion here. Humans have been deepening our ways of experiencing reality. Throughout 1.8 million years, we tend, at least it's easy to think, if we're talking about, hey, we're in the Paleolithic caves and there's humans right there, it's easy for us to think, that's just, we could imagine ourselves back there. Things are a little bit rough, maybe, but it'll be the same thing, same brain, same. No, our mentality has changed in profound ways throughout our existence on the planet. And some philosophers have noted this. One of the first that in my own study is Karl Jaspers. And he talked about two different kinds of humans, before the axial age and then after the axial age. And then another great philosopher, Eric Voegelin, he expanded on Jaspers' work and talked about transformations of consciousness in at least 4 different areas of the planet. And now Professor Wolfgang Leidhold has taken it another step, and he's identified 9 different, what he calls, turns in experience. And so, here we are. Suddenly, it starts to dawn on us that we don't fully know what the noosphere is, which means we don't fully know who we are. We don't fully know who humans are because they are not yet. They're in process. We've always been in process. And all of these different forms we've entered into have been marvelous in certain ways, but what is coming? See, that to reflect on that is the focus of our time. I want to end with one. I'd like to think of this as a precursor for the kind of experience that we can have now. And this, I think there are literally millions of different ways of having a similar experience to the one I'm going to describe. Literally millions. But it depends upon one's own life journey, and mine happened to be my own experience. I was having heart trouble. This is so because of that, when my heart started to go haywire, I was with my wife, and I didn't want to tell her I should go to the hospital because we'd already done that, and it was a waste of time. But I knew I had to do something. I couldn't just do nothing. So what I did is I stared at the back of my hand. I think it was a way of not making a decision. I was just sort of looking down, like sort of hoping things would get better, And but it was so weird because I was just staring, and the same little black hairs coming out, little pulses in the veins. But a weird thing happened. You see, I was outdoors, and I was feeling the sun on my skin, and I was like 29, and I'd been studying my whole life, really, so I know all about the fact that the sunlight comes and warms us, right? This was not a deep insight, but it became deep because I was thinking, wow, photons are landing on my skin, and they're turning into my consciousness of warmth. That didn't seem to surprise you as much as it did me. I mean, like, photons, right? They're little, we can measure them. They bounce off things and, right? Warmth. What's warmth? Well, it's the quality of consciousness. How do we go from a photon landing on my skin to warmth? Wow. And then I was sort of embarrassed that I'd never thought of that before, But then the next step was I knew where the photons were coming from. They're coming from the sun that's 93 million miles away. But then I focused on the skin. And like I said before, every element in the skin, every element was constructed by a star that blew up 5 billion years ago. And so as I just sort of sank into this process, I realized I was, the light from a star 93 million miles away and the elements from a star 5 billion years back in time, I felt suddenly I was inside this gigantic, creative process that I was witnessing. That was in between two stars. And I was in the middle of it. And I realized I am that process. I am that process. So that, in a sense, is this couldn't happen before. We didn't know all of this stuff in the past. So we're suggesting that these discoveries are leading to a 10th turn in experience. So I just sort of implicitly indicated what that is, but Professor Leidhold will go into some explicit discussion. Do you want to use this, or do you want to use it? Oh, thank you. Thank you. Can we have this microphone on the desk? Is that hard to do? Devin, don't turn away when I ask you a question.
So, am I on the air? Can you hear me? Oh, thank you. Well, I ended up here as a kind of a surprise, to me at least, to you probably as well. And at the moment, I'm looking into 100 pairs of friendly eyes. And I'm really very anxious. I want to keep that this way. So I start with a promise. I will be very brief. Okay. And I would like to start with a word of gratitude. I'm very thankful that you have invited me and that I have the opportunity to talk to you. And thank you, Brian, for stimulating that and all your stimulating thoughts. It is an academic habit to go to all the people that you need to name, but you all know your names and everybody knows what he or she has done. So I want to just thank you. It was a wonderful conference. And I'm very happy to be here because I'm not really a Teilhardian scholar. For me, Teilhard de Chardin was a rediscovery inspired by Brian, and it has enriched my own thinking enormously. So, to keep it short, thank you. I would like to look for the future of the noosphere in terms of the structure of experience. And I've read the history of the noosphere, the evolution of the noosphere, as a sequence of changes in the structure of experience. So what do I mean by the structure of experience? It's a technical term. Everybody knows what experience is. But if you look into the history of experiential science and empiricism, they look at experience in terms of content of experience. So my most important content at the moment are your eyes, the friendliness of your eyes, which I want to keep friendly. So this is my content. You are my content of experience. But what is the structure of experience? That's how we relate to each other. At the moment, it's two relationships that we share, looking and listening, looking and talking. I discovered that there are changes in the history of experience when I was 12 years old. And I will give you the brief story of what I call the story of the stargazer. When I was 12 years old, it was in February after a weekend skiing afternoon, and I was at the home of my parents holding the binocular of my father in my hands, and I was looking at the Pleiades, the stars, the 7 stars. And then I was turning around to take a look at Orion and his belt and the sword, and I was looking for the little nebula that's in there. And at that very moment, something strange happened. My attention was refocused from the stars to look inside myself. And I realized, being 12 years old, that I'm part of that universe. And that me looking at the stars is somehow a surprise to me, that I'm part of that entire outfit. So I was really shocked and went to my parents, who were sitting next door reading the weekend papers. It must have been about 10 o'clock at night. And I said to my mom, Mom, something very strange happened to me. And I told her the story, that I was looking at the stars, and then out of a sudden, my attention was reversed to look inside me, to realize my awareness of looking at the stars. And she said, oh, that's not so surprising. It's just self-awareness, and people in your age, they usually discover that. I did discover that when I was milking the goat of my family and realizing that it's me who does it. And my father said, yeah, the same happened to me while doing my math homework. Typical for my father. He never milked goats, but he was a good mathematician and became a sailor and a navigator. Well, that's what I want to say. This is a change in experience, you know. You turn away your awareness from one to another dimension. So far, I have discovered 9 such changes in the history of experience. They start in the Paleolithic, as far as I know, and they end just in the last century. So the first change in experience was the discovery of conscious perception. Later on, imagination, a sense of order, where people began to tell the story of the universe and creation. Then came reason and reflection, thought, what I call the noetic turn. And the most recent one is the discovery of the unconscious. You know, when people discover that they have an unconsciousness somewhere inside, wherever that may be, it's a totally different anthropology. Before that, what happens from the inside was just some intrusion of demonic forces. Maybe. Okay. So all these 9 transformations, I had already discussed it. We met about 6 years ago in 2017 at a little meeting in Ashbury Heights. And I told the story so far, like I do now. And the first question Brian asked me, and what comes next? I said, what comes next? I'm a scientist, I have no idea what comes in the future. And he said, no, it's interesting, you know, it's when you have 9 transformations in the structure of experience, is there, you know, a law that it ends now? Is it just 9 and that's it? Or is it 10? Or then 11 or whatever? And I said, I never thought about it. Well, he said, yeah, you better do. You know, next time we meet, we continue that discussion. And actually, we have been talking about this for 6 years now. And in preparing for that conference, we came somehow close to an answer. It's just 2 weeks old. Can you imagine that? 2 weeks after 6 years. You know, that's the process of discovery is sometimes surprising and long and short, and then suddenly it's there. I don't know if it's really good, If there's any evidence for this, it's up to you to decide. So, but I give you the final story of that story. So what we decided to do, we wanted to look at the tense turn in experience from the perspective of the noosphere, taking the essence of the noosphere to be something, has something to do with the nous, the Greek word for, it's not only reason, it's mind, thinking at the same time. So it's a little bit vague. And later on, it's identified with pneuma, which is a Greek word for spirit, a word that we know from Holy Spirit and so forth. So that's the field that the word is, pointing to. It's just a label for a certain kind of experience. Within these 9 dimensions, there's one dimension that is spiritual, but to that point it was only one. It's a spiritual experience of a divine presence, wherever that is, inside the world, on mountains. But finally the spirit became something that is a particular entity, a particular fluidum, a particular presence that is somehow approaching human beings when they open their mind. Simple exercise to open your mind is just sit down, keep your mouth shut and pray silently and wait that God may talk to you or just make his presence felt. So this is a kind of a transcendent spirit. That's how we look at God, as a divine being, transcendence. But there is also an immanent spirit that the noosphere is pointing to. Because the noosphere, the spirited, animated layer of the earth, as we have learned, is here. It's immanent, not transcendent. So the new and tense dimension might be us becoming aware that we are already in contact with the noosphere and maybe with all the other elements in the cosmos that have to some extent a germ of becoming conscious in them. So, what happens here? It's what we called resonance. We are in resonance with each other. So that's what I see here. You are still attentive. I can feel that you are focused on what I'm saying. I didn't offend you. I hope I didn't bore you. So that's a kind of resonance, and I feel a lot of sympathy. And empathy, it's on my side for you. So here we have a resonance from mind to mind, from spirit to spirit, and it's something that people like St. Francis have exercised throughout their life when they were preaching to the birds. So this empathy is not only among humans, but among humans and plants, among humans and animals, and we can extend it step by step all over the world. And maybe beyond that, and maybe beyond that. And there may be a cosmic resonance, which I have experienced because I love stars. I simply love stars. I hope they don't fall on my head, but except for that, I just like it, and I keep it that way. Thank you very much for your patience and your attention.
Thank you so much. The immanent earth in the Eastern wisdom is also the transcendence earth. We call it Mother Earth, and Mother Earth is conscious. And to create that awareness more and more, we are building a Mother Earth monument near Bangalore in south of India. And I hope if there is enough support for this concept to make Mother Earth as transcendence, the divine Mother Earth, we call it Dharti Mata, then we can build one in the Bay Area also. Thank you very much for all your comments.
You're welcome. Thank you for yours.
Parham Farsi, a minister with sacred practices. I hear there's this interesting thing that I want to point out is like, so we recently were discovering things are way older than we thought they would be. With like James Webb Telescope is a good example. You know, the life right now we're thinking it's 27 billion years instead of 14 that we thought about because of discoveries of all these universes that are bigger and the possibility of them were not there if the universe is that old that we thought about before, right? So things are older now. And then there's this other thing that comes up that's the process of remembering and forgetting, you know, that we seem to be going through these cycles as individual layers and with all the systems as well. So I keep hearing that you're saying the noosphere for the first time is becoming conscious and self-aware. But when we look into the history and all these stories that are left, there seems to be the conversations that are left to us as stories of like some prophet was talking to the noosphere or they called it God, you know? So can you tell me what your take on that is? Do you think that noosphere, is this the first time that's becoming self-aware, or it might have been actually the noosphere talking back to those humans back in the day into those stories that we just have left the pieces of right now? So what do you think of that? I want to know. Thank you.
Me?
We've studied the people.
Yeah. You know, in the history of experience, there are many dimensions that we have mastered before we knew that we did. So, for example, human beings have been creative since the Paleolithic, doing new tools, whatever. And it took a guy in the Middle Ages by the name of Richard of St. Victor to identify what was going on. And he called it creative imagination. So the noosphere is here for a long time already. And I think the important part that we are playing, this is sort of our task and our mission, for example, I think, is to make that clear, to articulate that and make it, you know, sort of accessible for other human beings. So it was there all the time. It's part of human history, but it was not always in the focus of our awareness. And that's what happened with Tyler. He made it clear, it's there, and now it's up to us to go on and, you know, disseminate that. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I was thinking, is it the first time that we're doing this, or we might have lost it? We've been here before.
I didn't understand.
Well, this may be the second or third time you and I have been on stage here speaking.
Yeah,
If you go back far enough in time.
yeah. No, it's the first time.
Hi, I'm Keith Mesker, San Diego. And I just want to express my gratitude, first of all, to Brian, who, starting in 2005, just ignited my being in this love of the universe and gave me the ability to sit in meditation and arrive at a moment where I'm thinking, I am the cosmos. I am cosmic consciousness. And it's the awakening that I've dreamed of and worked for all my life in meditation, just to arrive at this glorious revelation that we are the universe, alive and embodied and awake. And my life has just been so enormously enriched. I just want to say thank you so much.
Thank you, Keith.